So, by show of hands, how many of you guys get excited when you hear the doorbell ring or a knock at the door? Show of hands. That's totally what I figured. You know, it's interesting to me, like a couple people, and they're looking around like, everybody's coming to your house. We can go over there. It'll be fun. It's interesting to look at this, and I had seen this guy had talked about this years ago, and a couple people had started reposting it at service. He talked about the ways that it's changed when you hear the doorbell ring or a knock at the door from today to like 20 years ago. Because, 20 years ago, and some of you guys are like, I'm not even 20 years old right now. This is before you was born, all right? And some of us feel older when we talk about this. But, back then, all of a sudden, like the family, it would be in the evening. Everybody's kind of hanging out and doing their thing. And around then, everyone hung out together. I know that's a shocker. And they were hanging out together and not all looking down. This stuff, all right, you know what I'm talking about. You know it's happening in your house too. And so everybody was hanging out and they'd watch the TV and everybody would have a kid just so they had somebody to change the channel. You go like, hey, go up there. Yeah, no, not VHF, UHF. All right, change it over there. And so you'd change the thing and they'd move the antennas and all that. There was a different time. And you would be all sitting around and all of a sudden you would hear the doorbell ring, ding dong, or you hear the knock on the door and everybody... We have company. And everybody, the whole family's rush into the door. And they're open up the door, and everybody's excited, like, oh, look who it is. We're so, and bringing them in. And, like, I remember that my mom would have, stuff that would be ready for, it would be for company only. And it would be out on the countertop. And just there, waiting, and be like, but I want to eat that. You go eat them stale crackers over there. Because right here, this is if we have company. And you would, as a kid, you would just pray, like, somebody come to our house. Anybody come, I just want to eat that goodness. And they would come, and you'd bring them on in. And you would have fun, and you would hang out together and spend time together. And then the phone would ring. Right? And as a kid, you want to answer the phone because it's cool. You're going and the mom or dad's type, stop it. Nobody pick up that phone. Why? Because we have company. Have people over. And then it would and you'd catch up and look at the kids. They've grown up so big. And then all this stuff is milling up and just having fun. And then after a while, it starts winding down. You've lost track of time. 2-3 hours have gone by. You're just hanging out. The kids aren't even in bed yet. They're all like crashing out, falling asleep. You're like, oh, we should probably get going. Next time when we come over, and they would just stop and their thing would be like, what? We were just in the neighborhood. We were just, yeah, just passing by. Not today. Today, it's totally different. You have to set up, like now we're setting up play dates, like when you want to play. Well, in 4 weeks, we can get together and do stuff. My kid is in 85 different activities. It's going to be amazing. He's my 401k, hoping he works out. You have to text people, line stuff up, and then you miss each other. And you don't and even if you pulled up in the driveway, you're going to call, or you're going to drive around and call. You drive by like, oh, man, I don't see it. And you're going to message them beforehand because it gets different. And that's why we see the show of hands when, all of a sudden, if someone was at the door and the doorbell has rung or there's a knock at the door, what happens now? Ding dong. Shh, shh, shh. Shut up. Shut, shh, stop. Quit breathing. Turn off the lights. Stop, mute the TV. And they'd be like, just peeking out the window a little bit. Then you start asking questions. Anybody invite anybody over today? You didn't? No, you didn't? Everybody's terrified. Start walking around. Hey, go behind the couch. Grab the sword. Get that. Hey, Johnny, get your bat from practice. And you're going over, and you have to protect, and then you text that person, and they're like, hey, I just wanted to come by, and they see a little crack, like, what's your wife doing with a sword? What is going on here? And you feel threatened, and it's a totally different thing. And then there's all the get down, get low, I hope they didn't hear us, and they found us out. got to get out, and then the house isn't ready because, I mean, you might be the person, even on my OCD, but our house is a hot mess because we have people, little ones running around, and it's a different time. 2 decades ago, when we would hear that, it was a different reception as to now, when we're very scared and worried and wondering, who is it that's there? I actually don't even remember as a kid having a little peephole in our door. I actually don't remember very often our door being shut. It was usually the screen door or the glass door was shut and it was open and we were waiting and ready for whoever would come. You know, it's interesting that, and I've noted this before with things like the privacy fence, that when we started watching 6-foot fences go up, we started watching the way that people drew in and created their own little worlds and weren't as open to others. I find it fascinating that this premise of the front door and company coming over begins to transcend quite nicely into the way that we, and it's unfortunate, the way that we encounter God when God comes and He is at the door. At your life and mine, when we are encountering the Creator God, the one who set everything in motion, who is working through all things and in all things for your good and mine because He wants what's best for us. And yet when we encounter this life and God comes to the door, we're kind of like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm able to meet the challenge. Actually, I'm very terrified. Are you sure you are who you say you are? Could you show me something? Could you prove yourself before me? Because if you can prove yourself, then I would invite you in. Or if you could do a couple sideshow tricks, God. If you could like heal grandma and make my kids behave and do some other things, like then I would know, like if you do that, then you can come in. You know, it's fascinating to me that we begin to play this game with God when it comes to inviting Him in to be a part of our lives when He's the one who created us anyway. You know, and so when we've been in this series for the last couple of weeks, Here Am I, Send Me, and we've been looking at the life of this guy Isaiah, and I love looking at Isaiah's story because it so mirrors our just general human nature of existence today. When people say, oh, the Bible is just this ancient book and it doesn't have any relevance to my life today, it couldn't be further from the truth because we watch these amazingly beautiful narratives that God has woven together for you and I to dive in and understand what it means to live before Him today, in our past, and into our future. And we catch up with Isaiah, who's been trying. Many of us say, like, man, I'm just trying to get by. Just like day to day. If I can make it through the day and put my head on my pillow, like God, I'm like, whoo, all right, we're good. We're good. We'll try again tomorrow. And Isaiah is doing this, and he's trying to honor God, and he's trying to serve God. And honestly, he's getting a little tired because I don't know where you're at, but there have been times in my life where I've tried, and I didn't feel like I could see the results. I didn't feel as though I could see, as I kept churning and running and doing and being, and I was like, I'm not seeing the benefits in these sometimes. And Isaiah was feeling the same way. And so Isaiah's like, I want to give up. I kind of want to throw in the towel. I want to push all my chips in, cash in, and I'm done. And God gives Isaiah this dream, and we talked about this in the first week, where He just tells Isaiah through this dream, I love you, and I know that you are tired. But I am here for you. I am walking this out with you. And I promise you, I am not giving up on you. And so Isaiah has this dream, and he gets kind of rejuvenated. And he's like, all right, I'm going to follow you, God. And God is at the door, and He has knocked, and Isaiah answers in the way that my hope and prayers we walk through today is that you and I would answer in the same way that God kind of gives the call to him at the door, and He's like, here am I, God, send me. And then that's where the fun begins. Because then once He's answered the call, God's like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you to these people. And they're stubborn. And they're going to hate you. And they already don't want to listen to you. They might even want to kill you. And so Isaiah has a very human response, which would be your response and mine. Are you sure about that? And Isaiah's response is, how long, God? Like Isaiah said, here am I, send me. I'm all in. But then turn right around, he wasn't all in. He actually had a question about it. He's like, and he's questioning God, which for you and I is a very human response. It's a very natural response to encounter God in all of this stuff. And then God calls us to things that are outside of our comfort zone. We all have that bubble. It's not like when we take teams over to Vietnam and they have like no like circle of personal space. Like if I was standing right there where the podium's at and they like walk up, they're like, hello, Jason. And they're like right here. I'm like, no. Like I don't even know. You just saw my name tag and you read it and I don't even know. And they're like, hey. And they start just arm around me, just walk around. I'm like, like I'm not a hugger. Yeah. And just like, let's move. But no personal space. And there's that when God comes in and God's moving through all of this, that we're like, am I ready to do this? Am I ready to follow this out? As God knocks on this door, am I sure? And I think everybody has those, like, kind of scratch their head, shake their head, like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm ready. And I get it. But does that disqualify us from following him? And what God says, and we talked about this in last week, the answer is no, that God's timing is perfect. That God will set the time and place for when you and I will follow him, and he's going to use imperfect people to carry his perfect love to all of the world. And so if you're messed up, you're a prime candidate for God. And if you don't feel like you're messed up, then you're messed up and a liar. Let's just be real, because we all have it. We all have those things in the closet tucked away that nobody knows. You're like, nobody knows that, Jason. Like, we're good. I don't need to talk about that right now. No, God knows about those things and what God wants to do. And this is the scary part, which is why most people don't come to him. I don't want that stuff to get drug out into the open because then people will judge me. No, when we come to God and God starts bringing that open, you know who he uses? Other people to say, hey, man, let's go in your closet. Let's take this stuff out, man. And what they do when they look at you and they open it up and you're terrified is he goes, the people with you go, man, we all deal with that. You thought somehow you were just like the one? You thought God caught a unicorn all of a sudden? Like everybody else is fine and you're the one that like all this stuff is like, whoa, we've never seen this before? That God knocks on that door in his timing, it's perfect. And so what do we do? What does God unroll when he talks about this idea of him coming to the door of our lives, and how do we respond? Well, there's some passages we're going to look at today. If you have a Bible, you can turn over. It's at the back of your Bible, and so anybody can find it. It's Revelation, not Revelations. There's just one. It's singular. Revelation chapter 3, and it's going to be verse 20. We're going to jump around quite a bit. And so if you hold there, you can also get a Bible for free at the Get Connected table in the lobby. You can download a digital Bible. And you can download the Forefront Church app. And the reason that I say that is because we put everything already in there. So like all the verses today are already right there. Even if we have any quotes or anything like that, they're going to be in there. You can take notes and you can email it back to yourself, because if you don't, they all disappear in the app. Because there's a couple people like, I took all these notes and I'm doing it. I was like, that's why it says at the bottom, email this to yourself. And in the app, you can put in your email address that you've used each time. It'll bring up all the notes you've ever taken. And so make sure that you do that so you're able to hold on to those. And we're going to be jumping around a bit, and we're looking at these verses that talk about God and in this doorway, this moment of connection with him. And so over in Revelation chapter 3, it's in the New Testament of the Bible, verse 20, it's shared this. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. This is where we all start hiding in today's lifestyle. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, it's like, but we're all getting quiet and turning off the lights and shutting off Netflix and telling everyone, shh. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and I will eat with that person and they with me. This isn't God talking about raining down judgment. This is God talking about friendship. Love some of the other imagery throughout the Bible, and we're going to be jumping around, and it'll be here on the screen. John chapter 10, verse 9. Jesus shares, said, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in, they will go out, they will find. Pastor, basically what he's saying is here, listen, when we're in the community of an amazing God, through Jesus, is that we have protection, we have life abundantly. Now, that doesn't mean that your bank account rises. People hear that, they go, life abundantly, I need that. This isn't talking about like health and wealth stuff, because you can follow God and still be poor. I know. All right, I'm there with you. I'm there with you going like, we need that check because we don't know what to do. But this is talking about the way that you move in God and the way you thrive, and this is much more deep than any financial movement. John 14:6, Jesus answers. He was talking with the crowds around. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And so now Jesus is talking about that he is the doorway. He's talking through this, and this foreshadows what Jesus will do, and we celebrated that on Easter and then every other Sunday, that Jesus came down as a sacrifice so that you and I could be free. And it's a beautiful painting and imagery and moment where Jesus says, I care about you so deeply that I want you to be with my Father forever. And so I would rather sacrifice myself than for you to have to pay that penalty. And then in the first book of the New Testament, in Matthew shares this. But small is the gate, and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. See, this is where my heart begins to break. Because I feel like, and I know that my life for a very long time was in the many. The verses right before this talk about that broad and wide is the road that leads to destruction, because it's easy and it's very self-serving. And as long as we look out for me, then everything will be fine, but it's not fine. As long as I do me and you do you, then we're good. But the problem with that is that our life is a reflection of what we believe in and what we hope for and who we follow and the moral compass by which we move in this life. And so when Jesus begins to paint this picture, he's saying, listen, there are going to be a lot of people that kind of just decide, even though they've heard this story and heard this message and heard about my love, they are going to deny it because they feel like they have a better way. And then what Jesus shares is, listen, I'm the way that which everyone gets redemption and love and grace. And not just for a few, for all of mankind. But whether or not individuals from the beginning of time till the end of our time here, whether or not they accept that is on them. It's like God wrapping this amazingly beautiful gift and setting it in the middle of a park. And people going like, hey, there it is. You don't have to do anything. It's there. Like, there's $1 million, like right there. None of you would say, if you heard that news, and you heard it like it was on the news, and you had to drive to the park and pick it up, nobody would say, man, I really had to work hard for that. No, it's a free gift. There's nothing you have to do for it, that God opens that up, but it's you and I accepting that. It's surrendering to that. And so as Jesus paints this picture, he says, I'm the doorway by which you can do this, but my fear is that there are a lot of people in this world, and I did this for a long time, that really want to talk about the doorway and not actually move through things. I love what this pastor Kyle Idleman, he's at Southeast Christian Church, he put it this way in his book, Not a Fan, which if you're a reader at all, or if you're not a reader, they have an audio book too, and so you don't have an excuse. Not a Fan, it's a fantastic book, read a few years back. He says, it's much easier to talk about following Jesus when you are making general statements rather than specific commitments. I kind of want to paint this a little bit, like general statements, if we're looking at doorways, be like, I love doors. Doors are awesome. Like people like, you can make them big, you can make them small. Like I'm a connoisseur of viewing doors. Some people use them. I love where doors go. And on occasion, I might even go through a door here and there. And there's just this beautiful talk. Like you could have a conversation and someone could talk about doors. But those are just general moments. Those are just general statements. Now, you could talk about the size, dimensions, everything else. But when it gets down to specific commitments, and I wrote this out, if you're moving to that doors by God have led me to places where, and we can begin to fill in the blank. Doors by God have led me to places where I no longer, or strive the best that I can, live for myself. Maybe for you, is that doors by God have led me to places as I've walked through them where my marriage is stronger because it's not all about me. Doors by God have led me to places where my relationship with my children is better because of the way that I honor God and I love on them instead of shouting in them and wanting to send them to meet Jesus, if you know what I'm saying. Doors by God have opened up places as I've walked through them so that you are no longer guarding your insecurities by lifting up the level of sarcasm that you lead in your life. Meet people that do this all the time. And I love, listen, I used to wield my sarcasm. I was like, that's just my spiritual gift. That's what I do. God gave me, and I'm pretty quick with things, but time and time again, I've watched people's lives, and I look at this, when we get into specific moments where God opens doors, people go, I follow God, but that's just the way I am. I'm like, no, it's not. When we follow God, God begins to change us. And so for you and I, as we walk through these doors and you go, man, I'm not ready to do that, that's okay, because God's going to take care of that work when we surrender to him. And so if you're new with us this morning, you're just I don't know, I have these things, and I could go through this checklist of things that I feel like I'm not good at, that I fall short at, or whatever. Good, bring your checklist, because God can cover that and then some. And so as we walk through these doors and we walk through these things, it's easier to just make general statements. And I hear people say, I just kind of follow God. Following God isn't attendance on a Sunday morning or Sunday evening. Now, I love the fact that everybody's here. And I'm glad, especially if you're new, keep walking this out. But you know just as well as I do that going to a football game doesn't make me a football player. Walking into a garage doesn't make me a 69 Ford Mustang. Although if you have one, I will take it off your hands. All right? As we walk through this, if I go out to the picnic today and I start picking up trash, that doesn't make me a City of Virginia Beach employee for the park. As we begin to follow God and walk through those doors, he begins to change us and make us part of the family. And it is a beautiful thing. And I wrote this down, and it is just as I was walking through this message, because I want to say this, because this is a message that I have a hard time with. Now, you might not hear, pastors normally say that, maybe for you, if you grew up in church, you're I just went, and they told us what to do, and they did this, and there was a lot of hell, and fire, and scared, and I'm and whatever. I'm not going to do that, because I don't think that God's goal is to bait us into emotion to follow him. I believe that God's ultimate goal is, I love you, I want to lavish you with my love, and I want you to see that this isn't about a bunch of checklist things, that this is about a relationship. And I started writing these things down because I need to remember this, because there are times when I'm scared to death of God to walk through doors, because I love comfort. I love control. And maybe you're not there and you're free with that, but I'm willing to bet that there are a lot of us that are. And so I started writing down, what does it mean to walk through a door? God gives us doors to affirm his power and plan. Our role is to follow his doors that lead us and others to Jesus. And so for you and I, as we're walking through this and as we're processing this in our minds, how do we get to a place where we do this? How do I respond to this? All right, God's given me doors, and I'm trying to walk through them, and so how do I do that? Well, for you and I, and this is your takeaway, if you're taking notes in there, what is the big idea and those things, it's this, is that answering the door is living deeply, loving recklessly, and serving selflessly for God, to people, through the local church. I really want you to hear that. Answering the door is loving deeply, living deeply, loving recklessly, and serving selflessly for God, to people, through the local church. And you might say, Jason, I open the door, I do that in my neighborhood. I don't need to do that through the local church. And well, I'll go to PIN today. We have people, and if you want to go, you can pick up a card at the table. We send people to PIN to work with the homeless. You might well, I do that. And so what does it mean for the local church? And I want to say this because it's true, is that Jesus came and died for you and I to set us free. The reason that he left to go back with his Father was for two reasons. One, to leave for us, he says that he left for us an advocate, is that when we come to him and we surrender to him and we get baptized, we use a horse trough because we're country. And so that's how we roll. Even though we're at the beach, we're a little country, just a little. And so we use that. And it's nothing special about the water. That we go down, that we die to ourselves, and we rise up. He said, here's the two reasons that Jesus left to be back with the Father, to prepare for us a place and leave us a gift, an advocate, the Holy Spirit. And then as he left, he said, I'm going to establish the church, that through the church is where my goodwill, my love, and my grace will be seen throughout the world. And so I hear people say, like, I love God, I just don't like the church. I get it. I think Christians should act better. I also think there's a lot of things that I think should be different. But that doesn't negate the fact of what Jesus said it is, even with the imperfections and flaws, because we're going to fail you as a church. Whether it be through communication, whether you go to a small group that you don't like, maybe you went and served at a place and nobody talked to you for whatever reason. Like, if you're looking for reasons for us to fail you, we're going to fail you. I promise you that. And so if you're looking for a perfect church, we're not it. But if you're looking to live in community with people, because what Jesus said and what Jesus did is he wanted to establish a church, then you found the right place. And then we grow and we move and we breathe. And so how do we walk these out? What does this mean? What does it mean as we go to living deeply? And I wrote this passage down. It's in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament of the Bible. The writer Paul, he was like us. He was just trying to make it, and he was helping start churches and running around and going to different places. And he wrote this back to this church there. He said, stir up one another and encourage one another, meeting together, and don't neglect that as others have done. And I just kind of wrote in my notes that you and I need to open up our lives. If we're going to live deeply, this means that our life doesn't become like an open door. But if we're going to answer that door to God, we're going to put some frosted glass on our life. A little bit of stained glass, if you will, that people can kind of see in. Not everything. Because there's some things that you don't want to walk into like a small group setting and be like, hey, so guys, here's what's going on in my life. I'm a total mess, whatever. Like, you might not be ready for that. But there's going to be some people that you do open that door, a smaller group of people that you do open up and go, here's where I've been, and here's the things that I've done, and here's where I process, and I have hard times and questions. But there are moments in this when we answer the door of God that we have to be able to live deeply. And part of living deeply means letting people in. And if you're a person who, and I'm saying this because I'm this guy. I'm an introvert. I'm socially awkward. You name it. Like, you're going to see me at the picnic today. I'm super weird, all right? Like, I'm going to be hanging around. Even when you see me in the lobby after service, I just kind of stand there at the table. I'll be ready for you, but, like, I won't walk around and be like, hey, how's it going? Hey, high fives, all that. That's just not me. Like, you may say before God, like, all right, I can't live deeply because I'm socially awkward. I'm an introvert. I don't do well with people, whatever. I've yet to find the passage that says, well, everybody needs to live in community with one another and do whatever. But hey, John, you're introverted and you're awkward and weird, so you can be fine. Like, I have yet to find that verse for me. I haven't read that part where God says, Jason, you're free. John, Susie, Wendell, whatever your name is, God hasn't written a special caveat or speed bump for you. And so part of this living deeply is like, all right, God, I'm going to trust you. The other side of that is loving recklessly. I wrote down this passage out of Philippians. It's in the New Testament out of 2:4. It says, let us not look to our own interests, but to the interests of others. And I wrote down in here that you and I need to venture in to people's lives. That doesn't mean get weird and be like, hey, so what's going on? How are you doing? What are you doing? Do you think you're going to go to hell? What are you doing? What did you sin today? Whatever. Like, that's weird, all right? Like, those were the kind of people that when my mom and dad took me to church, I was like, this ain't for me. These people are wackos, whatever. Like, I dodged it, all right? But it's being able to engage other people's lives and go, hey, how are you? And here's what I love, and you need to practice this in your life with people that you care about. Hey, how are you? And then when they answer, go, but no, really. Because when you went, hey, how are you? I'm good, fine, all right, doing great. It's vernacular now that's wired in us. Don't ask how you're doing unless you want to know how they are doing. That's right. At some point, we have to say, I want to love recklessly in people's lives, and I want to open up, and I want to share with them, and I want to love on them and care for them and be invested in them. The other piece of that is serving selflessly. it is very rare that I find, and we have lots of people that serve around here, and I think they're awesome. And I have watched them serve selflessly around this church. But as a whole in society, it is very rare that I see people serving selflessly. And I've watched it. I've watched it on our current campaign trail. I watch these people showing up as they do stuff, and they're on the cameras at the soup kitchens and doing other things and out, talking with people. And I look and I go, you have sat in a house, and I don't know that you've ever spoken with one of those people till the cameras got turned on. And this is just, all of them. Like, you say, no, my candidate, whatever. Come on. At some point, we need to trust in something greater and say, all right, we as the church, it's not the political machine's job. It's not the government's job. It is the job of the church to serve selflessly. And when we answer that call and we open that door, we say, all right, God, I'm here. I am ready to serve you. And I wrote down this because this is difficult for me. And maybe it's not for you, but I put this in my notes because I wrestle with, can you worship a God who isn't obligated to explain his actions to you? And my answer was sometimes no. Because I want to know a reason. And then I wrote down, because I'm asking for myself, could it be that your arrogance makes you think God owes you an explanation? Could it be that you and I, and I'm just, as a pastor, I'm just being honest, there are days where I go, God, I need a little more from you. And God's like, who are you? It wasn't that funny. Yeah, who is that guy? But it's true. I was with my daughter the other day, and the doorbell rang, and so we do get in that mode. Everybody duck. Runs to the door. We don't even have a peephole in our door, so we have to look through the curtain, which that makes it real obvious. She just goes up, unlocks it, opens the door. Hi. You lost your God-forsaken mind. Go out there, and it's a guy doing whatever, and he's selling stuff, and we go and we leave. And I look at her, and I get down, because anytime I get on to my kids, I do want to get down on their level, and this will just be something for you dads. I'm not saying I'm great or whatever, but it's one of the things that I've learned. If you're a dad and you talk down to your kids, your voice and your vibrato already is over. It challenges them because they're scared. Get down on their level as you talk to them because you're already scary, even if you're the nicest dad in the world. Be able to talk with them face to face. And so got down because I don't want to be threatening, but I'm scared, and I want to put the fear of God in her for a hot minute. And said, baby, you cannot do that. You cannot just open the door. There could be bad people there. Well, how do we know if they're bad? And you go there and just stop. And we're going on, and I'm trying to explain her. And then finally I just said, because Daddy said so. And I was like, and in that moment, immediately I was like, I have become a father. I didn't need to teach her a lesson. She should be and needs to be and will be fine with because Daddy said so. And there are going to be moments where God calls us to places, and he opens the door, and we're going to have all kinds of reasons why we can't, and all kinds of excuses why we need to know more information, and we need a step-by-step plan. And God, I need all of these things, and God's going, it should suffice because I told you, and I have not given you any other reason to believe otherwise. And that is the truth. Is that God loves us so deeply and opens doors for us in such a beautiful way that we should not need to have any other reasoning other than God told me, and that's good enough for me. And so how should we respond? Well, it's by answering the door, is living deeply, loving recklessly, and serving selflessly for God, to others, through the local church. When you answer the door in that way, God just smiles so big, even though you're going to mess up, even in the middle of that. Would you pray with me?